Welcome back for part 2, wrapping up Raw vs. Jpeg vs. Ken Rockwell. Ken is still back here over my shoulder. So you just got done watching the video about, let's see, over and underexposed images, bringing that RAW file back further than you can do anything with that JPEG, and seeing how different the files turn out, and seeing why we've been pushing RAW files all week, and hopefully, you know, getting people to change and see the difference between the two. Not just telling you that the RAW is better, but showing you the difference. Excuse me, thirsty water. Ken, you need some water, buddy? Nope, Ken doesn't need any water. He says he's got some in his fanny pack. So part 2 right here. A lot of people say the JPEG shooters, this is what they say: I get it right in the camera. Meaning they make no changes after the fact. They get everything right in the camera when it comes to their settings and their exposure. Exposure is the one thing that they really focus in on. Hey, my hair's down, by the way. It got tired and it asked for a little rest. That's why it's down. So these JPEG shooters, sometimes I've been told, or I've asked or talked to some that shoot JPEG and say they get it right in the camera, they're referring to exposure. But then when I ask them, what do they do about their sharpening and saturation and all of those settings that you're supposed to set in your picture control if you want control over your JPEG? Well, some of the answers I've gotten have been pretty good. Like, really? I've never set that before. Okay, you've never set that in your camera. That means you don't really know what settings are set in the camera. I mean, what happens again if you set it to it's set to +9 on sharpening by accident and you shoot a whole wedding? You're SOL. You can't bring that stuff back. You can't bring that JPEG back. So here, let's start looking at these 3 examples that I have pulled from my test shooting. We've got Mr. Miyagi here posing. We've got a picture of Lil. And then we've got this flower shot that is, you know, a really good JPEG. It was pretty hard for me to get the color and the corrections the same. It took a little bit of work, but I got it. But there's something good that comes out of that, and I will explain that as I get there. So let's look at Miyagi here. This is what I would consider to be the proper exposure. I got it right in the camera. I pulled back on the sharpening. It's not as overdone. The saturation isn't as overdone, but look how nice, you know, Mr. Miyagi looks. He looks pretty good here. This is the JPEG. Got it right in the camera. The exposure's right. Now let's move to the RAW file that has been tweaked, because that's what you do with the RAW file. There we go. Dead, flat. Look how flat and dead it is. So look how much more alive the image is. It takes on a more 3D or realistic feel because the cat feels more alive. Not just because the white balance has been changed and tweaked to make it feel a little warmer, but just the detail. We're gonna look right in here. Look right in here. See how flat, and see how much it comes alive. You still have detail in this area. Look how nice he looks right here. Look how nice and alive. It looks like he's living opposed to dead. Here he's flat, and he's blah, and he's, you know, probably a little over-sharpened. Here, he's more alive. I like Mr. Miyagi. Thank you for posing, Mr. Miyagi. But, you know, that's going to show you that the JPEG that supposedly was captured properly in the camera is still not as good as the RAW file that's tweaked after the fact. That's just showing you that. Flat, alive. Flat, alive. There you go. Let's move over to the Lil image. Here's Lil sitting, watching her Food Network. I don't know who was on at this time, but, you know, it looks good. Proper exposure. You know, got it right in the camera. Not too oversaturated in the JPEG, not too over-sharpened in the JPEG. And let's move over to the RAW file. This is before corrections, and let's show you the correction. There you go. Lil just came alive. Look at how much Lil came alive. And yes, these are purple walls, and yes, this is purple carpet. Somebody had a Barney fetish. Not really, I just like purple. Lil also likes purple, so we can blame it on Lil. But look at this. Look how flat the JPEG is that came out of the camera with the corrections already made in the camera. Flat, alive. Flat, alive. It makes it feel alive. It gives some more dimension to the image. And that's something I'm noticing now. A lot more dimension, because I don't shoot JPEGs. I only edit the RAW. I only shoot RAW, so then I don't really get to see what these JPEGs look and see how flat they look. I mean, a lot of my changes is pumping up contrast, but I can even pull back on Lil's contrast, and it's still going to look better than the JPEG file. It still has a more warm and realistic feel. Look up here by the back speaker. See the difference? Gray, and then you have color. Gray, and then you have color. All right, so hopefully we're putting this to rest, showing you that the JPEG that was supposedly captured properly in the camera is still not as good as the JPEG of the same taken at the same time. I'm going to post all of the raw, well, I can't post the raw files up, but I will post the converted raw files up on my Flickr with the JPEGs that came out of the camera. So I'm not exporting them from Lightroom. They're as they came out of the camera so that you can see them side by side. Correction versus camera. Now the last image is this flower that's out front of my house. It's a really nice, well, nice colors, nice saturation. I think I pumped up the saturation in the JPEG to try to get the picture control right. And then here is the uncorrected raw file. And this is the correction that I made. See that? There seems to be more detail. It is a little brighter, but look right here in the leaf. This is the raw file, and this is the JPEG right here. JPEG, raw. JPEG, raw. Very similar. You know, look inside the flower. That's the JPEG. That's the raw. It's kind of difficult to tell the difference. Now, this isn't a bad thing. You know, raw, you better be able to get it right outside, you know, the JPEG, that is. So what is the point here? Well, for those of you guys who ask, what's the point of shooting RAW plus JPEG? The reason you would shoot RAW plus JPEG, if you really wanted to, you would shoot JPEG Basic as a reference file to see where the camera thought the correction should be. Sometimes it's good to have a baseline to go against, to see where the camera made the corrections and to see how you can make those corrections even better in the RAW file. So I got this file pretty close to what the JPEG said it should be, and then I took it to the next step and made it what I think is a little better. This one is very subtle, but it just looks, look at the background. It looks, there's more separation between the colors than in this. This loses color tones going across. That is your dynamic range. This has more of a range of color, and this has less of a range of color. So those are the differences. You know, if you're new to the game and you don't know your base settings, how to make the changes in Lightroom or Aperture or any of the other programs that you're using, you can go back to that basic JPEG for the time being and see where it thinks you should have been. So it's not all bad. You can use that basic file to do so. But really, that's about it. That's wrapping up RAW versus JPEG and showing you everything from over and underexposed images to properly exposed images that were captured properly in the camera to show, you know, those guys that say they get it right in the camera in comparison to the RAW file taken at the same time and being able to make it better. So I have a couple more seconds here to finish up. And just, you know, I want to thank everybody. Thank Ken Rockwell for the week. But I really hope that this gives you all some insight to make your own informed decision between using RAW and JPEG or using both. And see the difference in why we use RAW. It's good. I don't mind that it's bigger. Disk, you know, hard drive space is cheap. Cards are cheap. We've gone over all this in the last interviews, or in all those interviews that I've done with Ken Rockwell. 7, 8, 9, 10 parts of them. But that's about it. I mean, I really hope I gave you guys both, well, the best side of RAW that I could give you to show you the differences. And that's about it. Jared Poland. Hey, wait, hold on. Ken, you want to say bye? Nope, Ken can't talk. Jared Poland, FroKnowsPhoto.com. Signing off, wrapping up this RAW versus JPEG week. Thank you, and see ya.